All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to break down one of the most powerful, really powerful, strategic tools in modern marketing. It's called the STP model. And it's basically a framework that helps businesses, cut through all the noise and actually connect with the right people.
So let's just dive right in, shall we? Every single business faces this challenge, right? You've got a great product, you're proud of it, but how in the world do you make sure your message actually gets to the people who are going to value it? How do you stop from just getting lost in the crowd?
That really gets to the heart of the problem. A one-size-fits-all approach, it doesn't work. The reality is, we've all seen this. If you try to be everything to everyone, you end up being nothing to anyone. It's a fast track to failure. You've got to have a more focused strategy.
So what's the solution? Well, thankfully, there's this time-tested framework, the STP model. It gives you this awesome audience-focused approach that breaks the whole process down into 3 really logical steps. It literally guides you from that huge, crowded, generic market to finding your specific, ideal customers. Yeah, and this image here just illustrates the flow perfectly. First, you take the whole market and you divide it up into smaller groups. That's your segmentation. Simple enough. Then you pick the most valuable groups to really focus on. That's targeting. And finally, you work on creating a crystal clear identity for your product in their minds. And that, my friends, is positioning.
Okay, let's jump into our first step, segmentation. Now, this is super important. It's not about creating customers out of thin air. It's about recognizing that different groups of customers already exist, and your job is to identify them. It's all about taking that big, broad market and slicing it into smaller, more manageable groups.
So the whole goal here is to find these little pockets of the market, these groups that have common needs. A good segment should be, homogeneous is the technical term. It just means the people inside that group are pretty similar to each other, but they're also clearly different from the other groups. That's what lets you tailor your efforts and make them super effective.
Okay, now this is where things get really interesting. This distinction is key. You've got behavioral data, which tells you what your customers are doing. Their purchase history, what they click on. But then you have psychographic data, and that tells you why they do it. What are their values, their lifestyle, their personality? Understanding both, that's when you get the full 360-degree picture.
And believe me, there are so many ways you can slice up a market. You can start with the simple stuff, right? Demographics, like age or income. Or you can get a lot more sophisticated. You could look at the specific benefits a customer's looking for. Do they want convenience, or is quality the most important thing? Or maybe you look at their life stage, like are they a new parent or a retiree?
But here's a question for you. Is every market segment a good one? Just creating them isn't enough. It can be really tempting to just slice and dice the market into a million tiny little pieces, but a segment is only useful if it's actually, strategically sound. You have to make sure it's a viable group for your business to go after.
So yeah, your segments need to pass a little quality check. Think of it like a checklist. First, are they measurable? Can you actually figure out how big they are? Second, are they substantial? Big enough to actually be profitable. And third, and this one's crucial, are they accessible? Can you actually reach these people with your marketing and your product?
All right, so once you have your well-defined segments all laid out, the next logical step is targeting. And this isn't just about identifying groups anymore. Nope, this is about making a really crucial business decision. This is where you pivot from just analyzing the market to strategically choosing where you're going to invest your time, your money, and all that effort.
This is the moment you select your ideal customers. You're looking at each segment and asking, what's its growth potential? Does it line up with our business goals? And most importantly, can we actually win here? Because let's be real, if you get this wrong, you're just wasting resources on an audience that couldn't care less. But if you get it right, man, that's when you're aiming your efforts exactly where they'll have the biggest, most profitable impact.
Okay, so you've segmented the market, you've targeted your ideal customer, and that brings us to the final and maybe the most creative step of all, positioning. This is where you decide exactly how you want your brand to be seen in the minds of those customers.
And listen, it's not just about a list of your product's features. It's about the story you tell. It's about answering the question, how do my customers see me compared to everyone else out there? Positioning is all about owning a specific, valuable piece of real estate right inside your customer's mind.
And a positioning map, like the one you see here, is just a fantastic tool for figuring this out. It helps you literally visualize the competitive landscape based on what really matters to customers. And check this out. It can also show you where the gaps are in the market. See that? That's a potential opportunity, a space where a new product could just totally thrive.
So that's all the theory, which is great. But let's make this a little more concrete, shall we? How does a major company actually use the STP model to navigate a super complex market in the real world?
Well, a fantastic example is BT plc, the UK's biggest telecoms company. I mean, think about it. They have an absolutely massive customer base. Everything from a single person using their home internet to huge business clients. So what do? They use STP to create totally different messages and product packages that are tailored perfectly to what each of those groups actually needs. And you know what? This whole model is more relevant today than it's ever been, especially in digital marketing. We've moved way beyond just broad demographics. Now, digital channels let us do this incredibly precise targeting, like based on what someone is searching for, or their interest on social media, or even sending personalized messages based on exactly how they behave on your website. It's a game changer.
So, we've got on this whole journey, right? From slicing up the market to targeting a specific customer and then planting your flag in their mind. So after all of that, what's the one big idea? The most important thing you should take away from the STP model?
At the end of the day, it all comes down to this one simple shift. STP forces you to start with your audience, their needs, their values, their behaviors, not with your product. It completely flips the traditional model on its head. You stop broadcasting, "Hey, here's what we made," and you start asking, "Hey, what do you need?"
And that really leaves us with one final thought to chew on. In this age of big data, right, it's so easy to track every single click, every purchase. That data tells you what is happening. But the real magic of marketing, the secret to building a brand that actually lasts, is understanding the human motivation behind all that data. And that's the challenge the STP model really helps you solve.